Ever since the Capital One Venture X debuted around 2 years ago, one credit card setup that has been growing in popularity is the Capital One Duo, which is the combination of the Venture X and the Capital One Savor One. On the surface, a credit card setup like the Capital One Duo is great. It's simple and easy to use. It's more affordable than a lot of other travel credit card setups. It covers a lot of your major spending categories, and it even has some luxury travel benefits as well. But before you even think about adding the Capital One Duo or any other Capital One credit cards, you need to make sure that you can handle these 6 things. First, you don't want to get Capital One credit cards unless you understand and you're okay with the value that you get from Capital One miles. The reason that I bring this up is because Capital One miles are going to be worth less than Chase and American Express points, and there's a couple reasons for that. First of all, when you redeem Capital One miles for cash back, you're only going to get 0.5 cents per point, whereas American Express will give you 0.6 cents per point and Chase will give you 1 cent per point when you redeem them for cash back. So the fact that Capital One's redemption value for cash back is so low, especially in comparison to Chase, lowers your floor value and really limits the flexibility that you'll have with your Capital One miles, because the low redemption value means that redeeming your Capital One miles for cash back is really just not an option. You will get 1 cent per point in redemption value when you redeem your Capital One miles through the Capital One travel portal. And Capital One does even have features like price drop protection and price matching for any travel that you book through the portal. But unlike with Chase, specifically with the Chase Sapphire Preferred and Chase Sapphire Reserve, where you get a 25 to 50% boost, Capital One doesn't have any sort of boost, even with their premium Capital One Venture X for booking travel through the Capital One travel portal. Additionally, the best value that you're going to get from credit card points from pretty much any issuer, so Chase, American Express, Capital One, or Citi, is going to be from their travel partners. So this brings me into the second reason to avoid Capital One credit cards, which is because their travel partners are just not as good. The travel partners with Capital One are going to include 18 different airline and hotel travel partners, and some of the most commonly used and best value travel partners with Capital One are going to include Aeroplan, Turkish Airlines, Avianca, and Virgin Atlantic. But one thing that is missing on Capital One's travel partner list is a major hotel partner like Hyatt, Hilton, or Marriott. The reason that this is a problem is because some people just prefer to redeem their credit card points for hotel stays when they travel. And just like when I just talked about that Capital One limits your flexibility because the cent per point value for cashback is so low, the lack of a major hotel partner also limits your flexibility for the travel upside and point flexibility that you'll have. Plus, Hyatt is the most valuable Chase travel partner, so a lot of people prefer to transfer their Chase points out to Hyatt to get a consistent 2 cents per point or more in value. So not only does not having a major hotel partner like Hyatt limit your flexibility, but it can also limit your potential upside from transferring Capital One miles out to travel partners. To further illustrate this, I travel on the airline Aeromexico pretty frequently since I travel all over to different parts in Mexico. However, unfortunately, Aeromexico is just not known as a very valuable transfer partner. So to make up for this, American Express actually has a 1 to 1.6 transfer ratio to Aeromexico, which basically means that every 1,000 American Express points that you transfer will equal 1,600 Aeromexico miles. Unfortunately, Capital One just has the standard 1-to-1 transfer ratio to Aeromexico, plus their transfer bonuses, which I think is a really underrated travel benefit, are just not as good as Chase or American Express. So overall, the travel upside that you'll have with Capital One travel partners is just not as flexible and really just not as good. The next thing that you'll need to be able to handle if you want to get a Capital One credit card is that you might get denied on your Capital One credit card application in the first place. It doesn't matter if you have a high credit score, you've been in the credit card world for a long time, and maybe you consistently get approved on every other credit card application. Capital One will still deny you, and it's become pretty commonplace for people that even have high credit scores to get denied by Capital One. Sometimes this is as simple as you not having a pre-existing relationship with them, but also Capital One is an issuer that has multiple subprime options and has credit cards that are specifically focused on helping you build your credit score. So with that said, the credit card users that Capital One attracts is vastly different than that of American Express, for example. And if you are someone who has a high credit score that is applying to get a Capital One credit card like the Capital One Venture X, well, it's definitely not going to be as easy as you might think. And there's definitely an argument to be made to get the Venture X earlier on in your credit card journey. Because first, as weird as this might sound, it actually might give you a better chance of getting approved if your credit score is lower. And Capital One is historically sensitive to a lot of credit inquiries. So the more credit cards that you have, and especially the credit cards that you've gotten recently, is going to increase your chances of getting rejected on your application. Unfortunately, if you do apply for a Capital One credit card and you get rejected, kind of like how my wife did a couple months ago, well, that's really going to suck because Capital One has a rule that basically says you're going to get automatically rejected on a new Capital One credit card application if you've just applied for any Capital One credit card in the last 6 months, which is especially strict because unlike a lot of other credit card issuers, it doesn't matter if you got rejected on that application. You're still locked out of getting any Capital One credit cards until that 6-month window has closed. Okay, but let's say that you do avoid getting rejected and you get approved for the highly sought after Capital One Venture X. Well, one thing that you're going to need to handle is that you need to maximize the travel credit on the Capital One Venture X every year. A huge reason that people love the Capital One Venture X is due to the ability to use it as a keeper card, which basically means that you'll get enough value from the specific credits and benefits on the card to offset the annual fee. A huge reason that the Capital One Venture X is considered to be a keeper card is because you're going to get a $300 travel credit that you can use for any travel bookings to the Capital One travel portal every single year. So if you're able to maximize that $300 travel credit, then you can lower your effective fee down from $395 to just $95. But as simple as that credit might sound and how useful it can be in certain situations, there's going to be some significant downsides by using the Capital One travel portal. First of all, when you book travel through a travel portal, you typically don't retain your hotel or airline statuses. However, if you have a card like the American Express Platinum, then you're going to automatically get Marriott Gold Elite status and Hilton Gold status. If you have the Hilton Aspire, you'll get automatic Hilton Diamond status. And if you have the Marriott Bonvoy Brilliant, then you'll get automatic Marriott Platinum Elite status. So if you travel frequently and you stay at some of those hotel brands like Hilton or Marriott, then the status that you have can actually add up to a significant amount of value when you consider the room upgrades, free breakfast, and benefits like that. My point here is that there can actually be a significant opportunity cost by booking through the Capital One travel portal and not retaining your status. So to provide an example of how powerful status can be, I personally have Hilton Gold status, and so during my last 2 international Hilton stays, first I was upgraded to a swim-up suite during my honeymoon when we stayed at the Waldorf Astoria Cancun, and then most recently I was upgraded to a spacious ocean view room at the Hilton Panama, and both of those upgrades gave us a significant amount of value. In theory, if you maximize that travel credit, it's going to lower your effective fee down to just $95 like I mentioned, but that's only if using that $300 travel credit closely aligns with your organic spending. So if you travel a couple times per year, and you pay cash for some of that travel as well, so you can use that travel credit for that purpose. And of course, you always want to weigh the pros and cons of using that travel credit, maybe not retaining your status, versus booking with your status and the value that you get from that. Next up, the Capital One Duo is clearly the most popular combination of Capital One credit cards. And so before you add either the Capital One Venture X or the Capital One Savor One, you want to make sure that the benefits align with your spending habits. I just talked about the most important benefit on the Venture X, which is that $300 travel credit and the importance of maximizing it. But there are some additional benefits on both the Capital One Venture X and the Capital One Savor One that you need to make sure that your spending habits align with if you want to get the full value from these cards. If we start with the Capital One Venture X, you're going to get complimentary access to Capital One lounges for both yourself and up to 2 guests, as well as Priority Pass lounge access. But even though Capital One lounges are super nice, they're pretty limited. There's only 3 locations right now, and Priority Pass lounges are usually okay at best. So especially if you already have a card like the American Express Platinum and your home airport has a Centurion lounge, then you're probably just going to get like 0 value from Capital One lounge access. By the way, as a quick disclaimer, I know I'm being super negative in this video. I'm basically just going over all the reasons why you should not get Capital One credit cards, but I do so specifically to make you question things and make sure that certain cards are going to work well for your own setups and what your own spending and travel preferences are. But there are a lot of positives to Capital One credit cards as well, You just need to make sure that you see both sides of it. Additionally, the Capital One Savor 1 is seen as a pretty solid point earning card since you'll get point multipliers of 3x back on dining, grocery stores, entertainment, and popular streaming services, as well as 1x back on everything else. But if you have another card like the Amex Gold that gets you 4x back on important spend categories like dining and grocery stores, then you probably wouldn't really use the Capital One Savor 1 since you get higher multipliers on the Amex Gold. And in that case, the Savor 1 wouldn't make a ton of sense for your credit card setup. Even if you do put a lot of spend on this Savor 1, then you'll still have to consider other factors like the lower value and less flexibility with Capital One miles that I talked about earlier. Additionally, the Capital One Duo is going to give you some other benefits as well, with the Savor 1 giving you an Uber One membership and the Venture X giving you a $100 experience credit at the Capital One Premier Hotel Collection. So before you get the Capital One Duo, an important question to ask yourself is whether these additional benefits are going to align with your own credit card setup and what your own spending and travel preferences are. Finally, the last thing that you'll need to be able to handle before you get any Capital One credit cards is understanding that the customer service is really bad. For the most part, I've had good experiences when I've had questions and needed to talk to customer service with American Express or Chase. And especially with American Express, this is the most seamless process. So you can pretty much just log onto your account and immediately speak with a customer service representative over their live chat. However, with Capital One, at least to my experience, you're usually just stuck speaking to a call center. And so because of that, we found it super difficult to actually speak to anyone at Capital One that knew what they were talking about. And we pretty much got zero clarification to why my wife Lucia did not receive the welcome bonus on the Capital One Savor 1. Instead of giving us any rational explanation, the customer service agents that we talked to basically said that they had no idea what we were talking about and that there was no welcome bonus on the Capital One Savor 1. This was definitely a super frustrating experience, and I've heard of other people having issues with Capital One customer service as well, so they definitely aren't the most reputable. With that said, I do think the Capital One Duo can be a great setup for some people if you're able to organically use the $300 travel credit and the bonus miles in order to use that setup as a keeper setup. But I just hope this video can provide some questions that you need to ask yourself before you get any Capital One credit cards, and especially if you're considering getting the Capital One Duo. I think there's definitely some things that you need to consider with your own spending and travel preferences, what your credit card setup looks like, and whether you can handle having Capital One as an issuer. If you do decide to move forward with either the Capital One Venture X or the Capital One Savor 1, I do have links down in the description of this video that will take you to those welcome bonus offers, and I would really appreciate any of you who check those out because it's a free and easy way to help support my channel. But if you do decide to go with American Express instead, then you're going to want to watch this video where I go over some major changes that American Express has made that might make you choose to avoid those cards as well. But thank you all so much for watching this video, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Peace.